We do believe the deepest root of our problems is fear. If someone falls in the water not knowing how to swim, what will he do? Thrust by fear, he will struggle, moving in an uncoordinated manner, hoping it will maintain him at the surface. But this agitation will merely hasten his end. It is said that fear is not a good advisor, which is true. If trust had been stronger in this person, he would have realized that his body is lighter than water and that he could have let himself be carried. Undoubtedly, we are not conscious of how much our fears drive us, simply because it is an emotion that we do not like and have learned to disconnect from, thanks to the frantic and often incongruent acts which occupy our more and more hectic days. Nevertheless, more than ever, we are like the person drowning himself, doing the opposite of what would be necessary. If we were ready to look deeper, we would acknowledge that there is fear even if we don't feel it. Fear of dying, fear of missing, fear of not being loved, fear of not being up to snuff, fear of being criticized, judged, and many others. These fears come from the feeling of insecurity generated by so many of life's unexpected turns of events. Sooner or later, when all goes well, an event shakes our house of cards, and here we are, facing our vulnerability, as well as these fears that we want to avoid so much. Thus, life appears to us as dangerous, cruel, unjust, and trapped by the sense of lack within us, because let's admit it, we always lack something to feel completely happy. We believe that there is not enough for everyone, and therefore we must fight for our place in the sun. This is what has driven our Western culture to build this foundation on the belief that happiness is only possible if one has everything one needs, in the sense of what it takes to feel safe. That is to suggest that what we have determines our chances of being happy. This model of thinking that currently dominates the collective unconscious in the world is what I call scarcity or survival consciousness. It is fear, most of the time unconscious, that determines our thoughts, our actions, and therefore our systems. It pushes us to spontaneously accumulate to feel safe and to fight to be among the strongest, a prerequisite to access the resources and services that will give us the feeling of being safe. This, translated into economic theory, lays the foundation of the two main pillars: growth, having always more, promise of happiness, and competition, to be among the best because there is not enough for all. But then, we may well have immense knowledge, important means of production, and gadgets that we don't know how to improve further. We are nevertheless drowning. We have reached the time when we urgently need to understand that our actions are killing us. It's time to stop fighting against life, but to just go with it. This is the big challenge. Make trust stronger than fear. What, at a time when land resources are scarce and where the world's population has never been so important? Believe it, Earth's resources are not scarce. It is our ways of production and consumption that make them insufficient. They are abundant enough to enable mankind to live in sufficiency if we abandon this illusionary and societal model of racing for possession. Today, we have infinitely more than our grandparents and great-grandparents. Are we happier? Do we feel safer? No. So stop. It is time to expose the illusion of the American dream. It is time to change our pattern of thought and to enter what I call the abundance or life consciousness. Abundance not in the sense that there would be indefinitely everything we want, but in the sense of the person drowning who becomes aware that all is there for him to be safe. This is what the crisis of our century invite us to understand. All is there to allow life to express itself and flourish, even if we don't see it, even if we do not understand. Only fear prevents us from shifting from fear to trust. And shifting from fear to trust is to accept, to surrender to life's intelligence, to understand how we are profoundly part of it, that death itself is one of its aspects, a passage undoubtedly mysterious, but which doesn't imply an end or a defeat. It is to realize that we must settle our ways of existence according to what the planet has to offer without damaging it, instead of always wanting more. It is to meet other people's differences not as an obstacle to knock down, but as an asset that enriches thought, which is a prerequisite for the exercise of direct democracy. It is realizing that in working together we can benefit from each and every talent, and that by standing by one another we're immensely stronger and loving, while fighting and competition can only be synonymous with violence and war. It's putting the warrior within us to sleep and awakening the gardener. It is to no longer consider the earth as a prey to cut up, but as a garden to farm. The revolution to be conducted comes down to this: to operate a shift from the current system where fear justifies the accumulation and competition, and where money is the ideal tool for selection and power, to reconcile humanity where trust in life inspires the need for responsible and fair sharing, and where cooperation is recognized as the most powerful lever for peace and progress. Here, money becomes a tool for distribution and exchange to produce and share the riches of merchant goods as well as non-merchant goods, chosen through a process of reflection and debate. Okay, Matt, you say, but what does it take to move from fear to trust? Two things, as simple and as difficult as no longer struggling when one is drowning. One, to become aware of our fears, as they are unconscious most of the time, and two, when one can see them, to choose to trust instead. This choice changes our outlook on things, and our outlook changes the world. These words are easy to say, are they not? But to assimilate them is another matter, as they go against what our habits and culture have inscribed in our genes as of highest value. Yet it is this dynamic that will restore our soul of sovereignty, sovereignty whose symbol will translate into our economy in the recovery of the power to create money. As for now, we're at this point of the passage, most uncomfortable, I agree, but not the less exciting, where anything is possible. No need to spell it out for you. The pattern of survival is still deeply rooted in us, and the road to reconcile humanity and respected Earth is likely to be still very long. Everything depends on our individual and collective ability to recognize our fears and have the courage, because it takes courage, to tame them rather than flee. This is the price to pay to build trust in order for humans to liberate their true potential. Now, I have good news. This revolution is becoming visible. While the financial dictatorship is increasingly insolent and binding, it is taking shape and rising a vast global citizen movement, bearer of human and ecological values. I believe that humanity has grown enough to be able to undergo a revolution with intelligence and heart rather than by weapons. It is for each of us to prove it. It is possible that there isn't enough time for us to avoid the iceberg. Things will then be more difficult because we may find ourselves in front of empty storefronts or without money, in such a state of disorganization that panic might ensue. So what? Will we still have enough presence of mind to see that we still have a choice? That we don't have to give in to panic, knowing it only promises violence and suffering? That we can choose to be supportive and sharing, although there is little to share? We can do it, because we live this extraordinary turning point between the era of survival, now complete, and the one of life we do not yet know how to address, but whose signs are becoming more visible. Caterpillar, butterfly, what's going on there in the metamorphosis? We're getting there. The perspective of the transition as a stranger fast approaching us. makes us quite legitimately feel scared. But if we are led by the confident certainty that the butterfly is already in the caterpillar, we can put all our energy in revealing, whatever the cost, the greatness and love that exists deep within us and that is only masked by our fears. Don't you feel the call to fly? If we believe that we're ready, then we'll do it.